So, following the events of the world, I go back and think about the values in the Statue of Liberty and liberties that's born on the shoulders of what we know as the American way of life, the American dream, the style of self understanding. And no doubt many are speaking about these issues and what is going on of changes both in the administration of the United States but also in relation to other nations. And that makes many Americans both worried and uncertain. And I speak to some of them, and in my opinion, it's a kind of phenomena that is because of who we are and the way we humans are living our lives. I know we have disconnected the idea of morals and values from the idea of liberty and political justice, but they are connected. Whenever we in history make this disconnection, we tend to find ourselves at the end of the road with tyranny, suppression, egoism, selfishness, and a few people controlling everything, while most others just are dwelling on how to live. It brings some kind of psychological situation that appears before the new situation appears. It means when you look at the President Trump, for instance, in my opinion, he's just a phenomena of how people are. And those who are opposing him with demonstrations are some kind of phenomena of who they are inside. I don't believe in demonstrations, but neither do I like the ways of suppressing opponents with very harsh methods, even though it's happening all the time, all around the world. And it has been happening in the United States as well as it has been in Russia. So one asks oneself about the idea of liberty and the Statue of Liberty that's tilting for the moment, tilting towards maybe a big change so huge that the hegemony of the United States would falter and new nations will arise and become a new power in the world. That could be a very possible scenario. But I also see that we could have 30 more years with American dominance. This is, I find, more likely than the other description, saying that the United States is faltering. Because once a nation has gained so much power as the United States has, and amassed so much knowledge and experience, it doesn't just fall that easy, even if it has a leader who seems to be bringing everything on the brink of collapse. But it's not really the leader that's been doing this, it's the people themselves that have been doing this long before this leader even appears. I believe in human tyrants and human leaders and whoever we point out to be as a reflection of who we are, what we seek, and who we cherish. So we have been cherishing those type of people who are selfish, egoistic, psychopathic, narcissistic, and very, very slight tendency of, I mean, very strong tendency of manipulation. And so, why do we get shocked when suddenly a president has taken over with the same means? He's rich, he has this big smile, beautiful wife, the lifestyle, he can make deals and he can ally himself with the right people and suppress the others. And he's going on with that to make sure that nobody will really oppose his business and what he wants to achieve. So I believe what he's doing now is a reflection of what has faltered in values and morals inside us as humans and inside the Americans especially. And that has happened to civilizations before: the Turks, the Arabs, the Chinese, the Mongols, the Japanese, whoever had been leading, the Europeans nonetheless, the English, whoever have been leading the world comes to a point where they feel so superior and dominating that they don't need to back off. And we see a connection of issues going on morally that change inside the humans. The idea of liberty and liberation and the fight for the humans becomes some kind of smokescreen, a manipulative agenda, because beneath it all, there is this very cynical achievement that every nation wants to do for itself. Like the Americans, they want to control the Venezuelan oil, now the Iranian oil, and they want to also have the right access to the right countries, and so strategically, what they're doing seems very harsh and cynical and maybe straightforward, that we haven't been used to that for many years. But this is what has been going on all the time. I can't see why people are so shocked so suddenly, because the other presidents and the other administrations and agencies and governments do exactly the same. And people who work in these issues or have insight in them, they know that, well, 50, 60 revolutions around the world trying to ally yourself with the right countries for the oil or the access to the unique possibilities, always being on the edge with new technology, space race, chip race, AI race, and so on and so on. And so there's nothing new in it, but the idea that one man is taking off the mask and saying, this is how we do it, and we're going to do it blank and openly. No overt hidings. So at the same time, you can ask yourself what became of that dream of liberty and that idea of it. And some would say, if you go all the way back to the American Constitution, you will find that it's not been built on the idea of the freedom and equality for everyone, but for a special race and special people, as it has been with all the other nations, unfortunately. So it's always these big ideals that hides the realism behind it of a special layer or group or ethnicity controlling and ruling. With time, these borders gets pushed, and because of the needs of those people who are ruling, they will sometimes change those rules, like with the civil rights movement. If you look closely into that history and documentary of it, you will see that it didn't just change because, oh, they just felt soft-hearted towards the black Americans, because they suddenly needed them for something more than before, because the big push inside society was so huge that it could have toppled the unity of the states from the inside. And so that's what happened also when I look at the history of the Turks, when they integrated the Christians and the East European nationalities, and tried to give them some positions and roles. And before that, you have Rome and Europe, who tried to integrate some of the barbaric tribes, or they got integrated because they were there and they pushed the borders. And so things change from the inside. But things change much deeper, from the deep inside of values and morals. So you're maybe hearing me saying, let's go to the strict conservative rules, as we were, as humans have been. Maybe we should consider that, and I know there's a big movement for that around the world, but it hasn't really put its power through yet. But what I'm saying actually is more philosophical than political. It's not about having strict morals or loose morals according to the old Bible or according to the old values, but it is the value of believing in honesty, liberty, human equality, justice, not the least. And when all this becomes broken one after one, and people who are inside it know it, maybe can't speak up, or maybe try to speak up in overt ways and fail, or maybe just get the message through a movie or a story or a novel or a small article or some kind of like the Wikipedia and so on, medias, you get the notion and the sense that something is deeply broken. And so the situation we are in now is just a reflection of what's broken inside many of us. Um, and then another thing I've been thinking about is who's going to rule for the next 30 years. I believe it's going to be 30 more years with American dominance. And I would say thank God to that, because when I look to the East and see what kind of societies they have been doing, it's a lot harsher, a lot more steep, and a lot more difficult to maneuver in as a human with ideas and being yourself. I have seen the Chinese and I have seen the Russians. They are stiff, and they're really imprinted with that idea of just following without discussing. So the variety of views and ideas and suppositions is not as deep rooted for the last maybe 50, 100 years in the East as it has been in the West. Even though there is this kind of hidden suppression and manipulation in the West as well. Not everything can be spoken, and not everybody can speak his or her own mind. And there's a lot of corruption, as we are seeing with these Epstein files of huge dimension. Man, the whole top should be it's so rotten that it should be just withered away, like under the French Revolution, and say, go away with you all. But what is the alternative? A mob of people who will try to lead with no civilization ground, with no idea of how to speak or write or do, and then you will get a new kind of tyranny behind it. But maybe it's necessary anyway, even though it's gonna be like this. But for the time being, I see that I think America is trying to consolidate, United States trying to consolidate its power in different ways. I see how they are changing their approach in military, in gaining access to the resources around the world. 3, 4 very major countries, Venezuela, Iran, and you have now the topic over Greenland. It's all coming together to protect and enlarge and manifest what would be a new era called the Empire of the United States. And so they will have satellite states and people underneath them and with them, with no great opposition. And most likely the Chinese economy will boil over and stagnate, like it happened with the tiger economies in the 80s. I don't know much about these things, but I know enough to see some signs of who's gonna win this. And so what people are just shocked about, I'm not a fan of the sitting president, and I do not like the methods he's doing. And I know many people who does not like the United States. They love what's going on, because this is the sure sign of the faltering and the falling of the United States into a pit of injustice, tyranny, oligarchy, and a small elite ruling without masks anymore, without any comprehension of the humans they are leading, and that's where things shift. It becomes tyrannical, it becomes cold, cynical, and that's where it shifts, and it loses its deep-rooted energy and power. I know people who study these things, politics, sociology, and civilizations. They understand these mechanisms that many people do not even know exist. We only think power as raw power, the power of the military and the money and monetary, but the deep power that really makes a nation and a civilization go on and go on is the deep energy and the signals they keep sending to their own people and to people around them, people in the world. This is what keeps them going, their heart beating and renewing themselves from within. The minds and the hearts and the people who really try to build something up. So this happened in Russia when they were the Soviet Union. They built up this mentality that led them to send a man to the moon and do a lot of things as well, because they had this belief. And then it was, of course, crushed and broken, and the illusion, they become disillusioned, and actually this is the deeper falter of the Soviet Union, because it was again one type of rule one clan, one ethnicity, one type of people who want to control everything, leaving some people totally out of it. It's happening in Scandinavia. It's happening everywhere. It's not a Russian or American phenomena. Neither it's an Arabic or Jewish phenomena. It's just happening whenever some kind of people or clan take over. They want to manifest. When they manifest, they're gonna push somebody out who opposed them a lot, and they start pushing more and more out, and so out in the corner of that empire or the corner of that state will become impoverished, and many people will lack the abilities to associate with it, and so they turn against it from the inside before it shows the weaknesses on the outside. So maybe this is a salvation mission, and at the same time a deep concerning change for the liberties and the fundament of the United States, that you go in and interfere with the institutions the way you do. But why not? Well, they are ruling on some kind of the same basis. Like if you go to these institutions in the United States who control people's life, they also break the rules, and they just bypass them sometimes, and they do what they like, and a lot of corruption, and they have to keep an eye on the corrupt inside the system, and so on and so on. And so here comes a leader say, I'm not gonna leave this to everybody. I'm gonna take charge and control, manifest and solidate myself. And at the same time, the opposition will grow more and more inside. So it become a dangerous tipping point for division that is so strong and so deep that maybe you cannot amend it again. It will fall apart. They will have to do something else. But I don't hope it falls apart just right now, because who are the alternatives? Two big nations who are known for exploiting nations and people, and suppressing them and their thoughts. That's not a good alternative. Their mission is greed and the materialistic world way of life. And so in that sense, I don't hope it crashes just yet, because of all the vitality and ability that it has in it. But of course I also see they have also been unjust, and they know that if they look in their archives. The United States have the last century also been unjust to people, to nations, to humans, gone over the edge with some things. They're trying to correct it from inside and maybe bring those people to justice. But the more it keeps happening, the more it's likely to crash. And then you can oppose this idea and say, how come many nations are built on tyranny and they last very long, 20 and 30 years, and maybe with prosperous what can you say, situation. They got gold or oil or technology, even though they can be suppressing, like we see in other big nations. They can be suppressing or one-sided ideology. That's because it's not the liberty in itself that brings about this strength. It is another way of life and lifestyle. Maybe this is what the United States is shifting into, another lifestyle, going back to the old ways of the empires, and removing all these illusions in people's head that you are free and you are doing, you are a servant and you will stay a servant and you will live up to whatever the masters tell you, and you will, that's what will unite the people against their enemies. Maybe that's where it's going. So because we see other nations with no means of, they don't believe deeply in these ideas, and we can see them withstanding and pushing back and building up military and army. But what's the shape of the human being in that coalition or in those nations? How do the humans act and live there? What kind of feeling do they go with? What are they really defending in their life? What would they stand up for? And this is what we've been looking at as like civilizations. Who are the better ones? Who will last longer? Who will be able to prevail? I still believe it's those who deeply believe in the human value of superiority, equality, and not the least justice. Justice and goodness, beauty and truth. Uh, if they keep prevailing and coming back, and we can keep getting rid of corruption, egoism, manipulation, and selfishness, people who are trying to misuse and abuse their powers and systems, the better off the society will be on the long run, because that will renew the faith in it and will make people fight for it stronger and deeper and with another energy and soul than they would on the side of those powers who just lead them by force and suppression and take away the dignity and humanity in them and make them feel the fear. I believe fear is necessary because as humans are, they cannot live without fear, but only in portions and to a certain limit and with the safety of the justice behind it. But on the other side, the idea that brings people to sacrifice and work harder is also what they can gain out of it, both in money and materialistic returns, but also in some kind of position or what kind of lifestyle they will be achieving by fighting for that notion. And what can you say, way of life is appearing back again. I know many people have put aside the idea of monotheism and the monotheistic countries, the Jewish especially, and some of the Christian ways, but also the Muslims, put them aside as old-fashioned and non-humanitarian and from the Dark Ages. There is some truth to that, but they have a lot of that special energy hidden inside its members and people, that they believe the world will be better and more just and more good, more flourishing when God's word or way of life will prevail again. And this is a power to be looking at in the future as the one that's carrying all these, also in the United States, renewal ideas. It's not because they didn't stagnate or forgot all about that God, but I believe we're going to see a shift back to those exact values, since the others have played their hands and showed they can't lift the burden, neither in the States or others. At the same time, the world is going on. We are sending rockets to the moon, satellites around the earth, building new technology. But at one point, it will all stagnate, because when the humans stagnate in their hearts and minds, things stagnate for a long, long time. And this is maybe the first signs of what's going on, that we are seeing plainly some small elite taking power and rooting it more and more in themselves, not again redistributing or helping the system work so people can benefit from it and help it stand on its grounds. So we're back to the Egyptians with the slaves who built the pyramids, but they must have had some kind of they got toppled anyway, must have had some kind of feeling of belonging and energy to build all that and to do it wholeheartedly. I don't believe it was just a punishment and the fear that led them to build such beautiful things and so amazing things. It has been something more and deeper. We know that as educators. It's something more deeper. Fear can be a part of it, but many times just freezes people and makes them not see the beauty and do the beauty behind things. It's the gains and the big picture and serving a higher power that most of the time leads people to believe, to lift the fackel. And so the Statue of Liberty is there, in my opinion, tilting in its twilight. And I know where we're going. I'm just reflecting for myself here on some issues when I have been talking to some of my friends.